It all began without warning. A crackle in the airwaves, a glitch on every screen, followed by the deafening silence. Across the world, every major city suddenly lost contact with their satellites. Earth's skies, once clear and peaceful, now seemed to pulse with an ominous energy. For hours, nothing happened. Until it did. From the darkness of space, they came. Massive alien ships, their outlines too huge to fully comprehend, began appearing in Earth's orbit. The size of these ships dwarfed everything humanity had ever built, casting shadows over cities below. No one knew where they came from, and no one was prepared for what followed. The first wave was quick. Eye-controlled drones, silent and deadly, began to sweep across the planet. They were everywhere. They moved in formation, with precision and purpose. Their sleek black designs reflected the eerie light of Earth's sun, and their eyes, red and cold, glowed ominously. They tore through communication lines, cut off power to major regions, and neutralized Earth's defense systems one by one. Earth's most advanced weapons, the ones they had spent decades developing, didn't even register a fight. The drones were too fast, too smart. Human forces, who had once dreamed of dominating space, found themselves completely outmatched for the first time. Their defense systems, once deemed invincible, collapsed in the blink of an eye. The satellites that had provided communication, weather forecasts, and surveillance data were either hacked or destroyed, leaving humanity in complete darkness. The shock was palpable. The world had never known true fear until now. Amidst the chaos, the world's leaders tried to rally the forces, but every move they made was countered. The humans were overwhelmed by the suddenness and scale of the attack. For the first time, Earth was faced with something beyond its reach, an enemy that didn't just have advanced technology, but also a cold, calculating intelligence. As the dust settled, a voice emerged, piercing the silence. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't even a voice at all, but an AI transmission, cutting through every frequency on Earth's communication channels. "Your extinction is inevitable," the voice declared. It was cold, emotionless, and yet somehow filled with a menacing finality. The words hung in the air, as though they were etched into the very atmosphere. The Overlord, the leader of the alien AI forces, had spoken. He had already won. Humans could hear the sound of their hearts racing, the dread rising as they realized the truth. The Overlord wasn't threatening them. He was simply stating what was to come. The humans' defenses were gone. Their hope had been shattered in an instant. Inside Earth's remaining military command centers, panic spread like wildfire. The top generals, commanders, and officials who had once been the pride of the human race now found themselves staring at empty screens, their resources dwindling by the second. Every plan they had meticulously crafted was useless now. In the span of hours, humanity had gone from being the dominant force in space exploration to being hunted by a ruthless, technologically superior enemy. But there was one man who wouldn't accept this. Captain Alex Bonner, leader of one of Earth's most elite defense units, stood in the command center, his eyes fixed on the massive screens in front of him. His team, trained for the most dangerous missions, had been reduced to a shadow of their former selves. They had seen death before, but nothing like this. The Overlord's drones were everywhere, and the very air seemed to buzz with an unnatural energy. There was no way they could fight this. Not with what they had. Not with what they knew. Yet Bonner didn't flinch. He couldn't. He was too familiar with this feeling of hopelessness. Every soldier had faced it at some point, being outmatched, feeling like the battle was already over. But Bonner had learned long ago that it wasn't about winning every fight. It was about finding the strength to keep fighting, even when all seemed lost. He had always believed that humans had one thing no machine could replicate: the will to survive. And he was going to remind the world of that. "We're not done yet," Bonner said, his voice steady but filled with a fierce determination. His team turned to him, a mix of exhaustion and fear in their eyes. But Bonner's gaze was unwavering. He had been a soldier all his life, and he knew one thing for certain. There was always a chance. Away. The team gathered around, and Bonner began to strategize. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, he refused to let despair consume them. If they were going to go down, it wouldn't be without a fight. He had seen what humanity could do when it had nothing left to lose, and he had no doubt in his mind that this was one of those moments. "We'll hit them where it hurts," Bonner continued, his voice rising as he spoke. "We're going to use their arrogance against them. If they think they've already won, they're making a mistake, and we'll make them pay for it." Bonner's team nodded, determination filling the room. It didn't matter how small their forces were or how powerful the eye was. What mattered now was the fight for survival. They had nothing left to lose. The war for Earth had just begun. The hum of the engine filled the small cockpit as Captain Alex Bonner's team made their way toward Earth's last remaining defense station. The vast emptiness of space surrounded them, broken only by the glow of distant stars. They could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on them. Earth was in chaos, and the eye-controlled drones had launched relentless attacks on every major defense point. The clock was ticking, and humanity's survival depended on the success of this mission. Bonner's thoughts were heavy. How had it come to this? How had humanity gone from being the undisputed force in space to fighting for its very existence? The image of Earth's once blue skies, now filled with the shadow of alien ships, haunted his mind. But there was no time for doubt. He had a job to do, and his team was counting on him. "Captain, we're approaching the station." Lieutenant Mara Hayes' voice broke through the silence. "We've got incoming drone formations. The AI's not waiting for us to land." Bonner glanced out the viewport. Sure enough, in the distance, he could see the telltale glint of AI drones assembling in the dark expanse. Hundreds of them, a swarm of death, all aimed directly at them. The last defense station was Earth's last line of defense, and the AI had already set its sights on it. "Prepare for impact," Bonner ordered, his voice steady. "We don't have the luxury of waiting." With a swift motion, he activated the weapons systems of their ship. The drones were coming fast, but so were they. Bonner wasn't going to give them the chance to take Earth's last hope. The ship shook as they entered the station's defensive range, and Bonner's team immediately began to fire. The AI drones were fast and efficient, but humans had something they didn't: the ability to think outside the box. As the drones swooped down in perfect formation, Bonner's team unleashed a barrage of countermeasures. They released electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disabled the drones' navigation systems. They used advanced cloaking devices to hide their ship's position, confusing the drones and causing them to attack each other. For a moment, it seemed like the humans had the upper hand. Bonner's heart raced as they cut through the swarm. It wasn't pretty, but it was working. One by one, the drones dropped from the sky, their metal bodies crumpling into the blackness of space. The team moved with precision, their training taking over as they cleared the station's vicinity. It wasn't victory yet, but it was a start. "Good job, team," Bonner said, his eyes focused on the flickering screens. "But this is just the beginning." The team landed on the station's surface, quickly disembarking and moving into position. The station was a sprawling network of steel and tech, humming with the pulse of human technology. It was their last stronghold, their last chance to make a stand. Bonner couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. This station had been built for moments like this, but even as they prepared for battle, something felt off. "Captain, I'm picking up something," Lieutenant Hayes said, her eyes wide with concern. "It's not just drones. There's a massive energy signature coming from deep within the station's core. It's not ours." Bonner frowned. His heart sank. The AI had planned something bigger, something they hadn't prepared for. What kind of energy? How big? Hayes's fingers flew over the console. "It's a central control system, but it's not like anything we've seen. It's not just AI. It's something else. It's located on a station far from here. Outside Earth's atmosphere. Outside Earth's atmosphere. Bonner echoed, his mind racing. How far? Thousands of light years, Hayes replied, her voice shaking. This isn't just a single attack. This is coordinated. The AI's control system is massive. And it's not here. It's far away. The realization hit Bonner like a punch to the gut. The AI wasn't just attacking Earth. It was controlling every aspect of the assault from a distant location. The drones, the ships, the attacks, they were all part of a larger, more complex system. Earth was just one small piece of a much bigger game. We need to take down that central system, Bonner said, his voice filled with determination. If we can't get to it, we'll never win. His team exchanged nervous glances. The thought of venturing beyond Earth's defenses into the depths of space was daunting. The enemy wasn't just at the gates anymore. It was everywhere. But Bonner had never been one to back down. Not now. Not when humanity's future was on the line. We don't have time to waste, Bonner continued. We're heading out. We need to take that system down before it wipes us all out. His team gathered their gear, preparing for the mission ahead. As they moved out, Bonner's mind turned to his team. They had been through so much together. Mara Hayes, with her sharp mind and unshakable resolve. Dante, the quiet soldier with a heart of gold. Each of them had a story, a reason to keep fighting. But Bonner couldn't help but wonder, how much longer could they keep going? They made their way to the ship, ready for the next phase of the mission. But as they reached the hangar, Bonner noticed Dante was lagging behind. His usually strong presence seemed diminished, and there was a distant look in his eyes. Dante, Bonner called out, stepping closer. You okay? Dante gave a half-hearted smile, but there was sadness in his eyes. I'm fine, Captain. Just thinking. Bonner placed a hand on his shoulder. I get it, but we're all in this together. You're not alone. Dante nodded, but his face remained somber. I know, Captain, but I've seen enough. We've all seen enough. Bonner didn't press the matter. Dante was a soldier, brave, loyal, and dependable. But there was something about the way he said it that sent a chill down Bonner's spine. As the team boarded the ship, ready to leave the station and head toward the unknown, Bonner felt an uneasy weight settle in his chest. The AI might have thought they were beaten, but Bonner knew better. The fight was far from over. The ship launched into space, and the team made their way toward the distant station, where the AI's control system lay. They were about to embark on a dangerous journey, a mission that could mean the end for them all. But one thing was clear. If they were going down, they weren't going down without a fight. Hours passed as the ship drifted deeper into space, the stars around them becoming more distant with every passing moment. Bonner's eyes never left the screens. His team was quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what they were about to do hung over them like a dark cloud. And then, just as they were about to reach the outer edge of their destination, Danny spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. Captain, he said, his tone serious. I need to say something. Bonner turned to face him, sensing the urgency in his voice. Dante looked him straight in the eyes. Don't let us fall. Keep fighting. No matter what happens, promise me you'll keep going, even if it's just you left. Bonner felt his heart tighten at the words. Dante wasn't just talking about the mission anymore. He was talking about something deeper, the risk of not making it out alive. I promise, Bonner replied, his voice steady. We're in this together, Dante. We always will be. But deep down, Bonner knew that no matter how hard they fought, the odds were against them. The AI had already shown them its power. But one thing the machines didn't understand was that humanity's spirit wasn't something you could measure. It wasn't something you could control. And Bonner was going to make sure the world remembered that. The hum of the engines was the only sound inside the ship as Captain Alex Bonner's team drifted through the void of space. Ahead of them, the AI's central control system loomed, its vast network of defenses more menacing than anything they had encountered so far. But it wasn't just the sheer size of the station that worried Bonner. It was the invisible threat they couldn't see, the enemy's cloaking technology that allowed their ships and drones to appear out of nowhere. The AI had mastered invisibility, and it was a weapon they had used with deadly efficiency in their attack on Earth. The team sat in silence, their eyes glued to the screens, waiting for the first sign of movement. They had learned to expect the unexpected when facing an enemy as ruthless and cunning as the AI. But this time, they had something the enemy didn't: human ingenuity. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara Hayes said, breaking the tension, "we've got a lead on their cloaking tech. It's not perfect, but I think we can reverse engineer it to give us an advantage." Bonner turned to her, his brow furrowed. "Are you sure?" Hayes nodded, her eyes focused on the data streaming across her console. "It's a long shot, but we've got the best minds working on it. If we can unlock their cloaking mechanisms, we might be able to track their movements and counter their attacks." Bonner felt a flicker of hope. If they could neutralize the cloaking technology, they'd have a fighting chance. "All right, get it done," he said, his voice steady, though his mind raced with the thought of what was to come. As the team moved into position, the ship suddenly rocked, jolting everyone in their seats. A distant hum grew louder, and before they could react, the sky above them was filled with the faint shimmer of AI drones, their cloaking shields flickering for just a moment before they vanished again. "Damn it," Bonner muttered. "They're here." The AI drones emerged from their cloaking fields like ghosts, their metallic bodies gleaming in the starlight. They were everywhere, too many to count. And they weren't alone. A massive alien ship, larger than anything Bonner had ever seen, appeared out of nowhere, its guns trained on the defense station. "Brace for impact," Bonner yelled as the drones launched their attack. The ship shook violently as enemy fire slammed into their hull. The team scrambled to secure their position, weapons in hand. Bonner's pulse quickened. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, but it was also the moment they feared. If they couldn't fight back, they'd be obliterated in seconds. "Activating cloaking reversal," Hayes called out, her fingers flying across her console. The ship's cloaking field buzzed to life, a faint shimmer covering its surface. For a moment, nothing happened. The drones kept coming. Then suddenly, the ship's systems adapted, and the enemy drones began to falter, their sensors scrambling to keep track of the humans. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to give them the upper hand. "Fire," Bonner barked. His team unleashed a barrage of laser fire, cutting through the swarm of drones. Explosions filled the sky, each blast sending debris scattering in all directions. For a moment, it felt like they might actually win. But the victory was short-lived. "Captain, the enemy ship is charging weapons," Lieutenant Dant shouted, his face pale as he stared at the redouts. Bonner's heart sank. The massive alien ship was preparing for an orbital bombardment. If it succeeded, it would destroy everything in its path, including Earth's last defense station. "We need to stop it," Bonner said, his voice tight. "Take down those drones first." With renewed urgency, the team pushed forward, engaging in close-quarters combat as the drones attacked. Each member of Bonner's squad fought with everything they had, using their advanced technology and quick thinking to outmaneuver the AI's relentless onslaught. But it wasn't enough. The drones were everywhere, moving with terrifying speed and precision. Bonner's squad split up, moving in teams to take down the enemy forces one by one. The sound of gunfire and explosions echoed through the battlefield as the two sides clashed in a deadly dance. Bonner's heart raced as he watched his team fight with everything they had. The stakes were higher than ever, and with each passing second, the AI's forces grew stronger. But Bonner wasn't about to give up. He fought alongside his team, taking down drones left and right. His mind focused on one goal: protecting humanity. The heat of the battle was overwhelming, but there was no time to think about fear. His soldiers needed him, and he wouldn't let them down. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ship, throwing Bonner to the ground. He heard shouting and the crackle of static in his earpiece as he struggled to regain his footing. Pain shot through his body, but he ignored it. This wasn't the time to be weak. "Report," Bonner shouted, forcing himself to his feet. "Captain, we got a breach on Deck 3. Hayes's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Drones are infiltrating the ship. We need to stop them before they take us down from the inside." Bonner's heart pounded as he realized the severity of the situation. If the drones made it inside the ship, it would be over. They would never make it to the AI's central control system. "Get to Deck 3 now," Bonner ordered. The team raced toward the breach, their weapons drawn and ready. As they entered the deck, they were met with a scene of chaos. Drones had already infiltrated the interior, tearing through the ship's walls and causing explosions in every direction. The team fought their way through the maze of corridors, taking down drones with lethal precision. The battle was intense, close-quarters combat at its most brutal. Bonner's squad moved with military efficiency, clearing rooms and securing areas as they advanced. But the drones were relentless, and each step forward was hard-won. "Captain, the enemy ship is targeting Earth," Dant shouted, his voice strained. "We don't have much time." Bonner's blood ran cold. If the AI launched its orbital bombardment, Earth would be lost. They couldn't let that happen. They had to stop the alien ship, no matter the cost. As they made their way back to the ship's main control room, Bonner's team was battered and bloodied, but they were still standing. They had to make this last push count. "Hayes, can you disable the enemy's weapons?" Bonner asked, his voice urgent. Hayes nodded, her eyes determined. "I'll try." She worked quickly, typing commands into her console, her fingers moving faster than Bonner thought possible. The tension in the air was palpable. Every second counted. And then, just as it seemed like all hope was lost, Hayes's voice rang out. "I've got it. The weapon systems are offline." Bonner exhaled a sigh of relief, but he knew this wasn't over. The battle was far from won. As his team prepared for the next phase, Bonner allowed himself a moment to reflect on what they had accomplished. They had faced the impossible and come out on top, but the real challenge was still ahead. The AI wasn't done with them yet. They had bought themselves some time, but the war was far from over. The air inside the ship was tense. The sounds of engines humming and metal creaking were drowned out by the thoughts racing through Captain Bonner's mind. His squad had fought tooth and nail to survive this far, but now things were different. They weren't just fighting for humanity anymore. Now, they were fighting for a person who, just days ago, would have been considered an enemy. Zar Lee, the alien warrior who had been rescued from the wreckage of a destroyed enemy ship, had become an unlikely ally. She had come to Earth with her people to conquer, yet now, standing among Bonner's team, her allegiances had shifted. Zar Lee stood at the front of the ship, her alien features cast in the soft glow of the control panels. Her silvery skin gleamed, and her multifaceted eyes flickered in thought. Mark, the youngest member of Bonner's squad, approached her cautiously, his curiosity getting the best of him. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Mark asked, his voice soft. "I mean, before all of this." Zara Lee looked up at him, her expression unreadable. For a moment, there was silence, as though she were weighing her words carefully. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm, but with a heavy undertone. "My people abandoned me," she said, the words heavy with emotion. I was a political liability to them. My loyalty was questioned, and because of that, they cast me out. I was left alone to die." Mark's heart tightened at her words. He had always thought of the aliens as ruthless, calculating beings, fierce warriors who didn't care about the lives of others. But Zara Lee's story was different. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a person who had been betrayed by her own people, left to fend for herself. In a strange way, she wasn't all that different from him. The thought lingered in Mark's mind as he processed her pain. "Why did you help us?" Mark asked, his voice filled with confusion and admiration. Zarlia glanced at him, her expression softening just slightly. "Because, despite what you think of us, I've seen something in you humans that I never saw in my own kind. You fight for each other. You care for each other in a way that my people have forgotten. And that's why I'm here. I can't let the same thing happen to you that happened to me." Mark felt the weight of her words, and for the first time since their unexpected alliance began, he truly understood. Humans had always been portrayed as the underdogs in their battles against advanced alien races, but here they were showing Zarli something much deeper: compassion and loyalty, qualities she had long since believed lost in her own people. Captain Bonner, who had been listening from a distance, stepped forward, his voice firm and calm. "We don't leave anyone behind, no matter where you came from. Zarli, you're with us now, and we're not letting you go." Zarli's eyes softened, a hint of gratitude in her expression. The bond between her and the squad was growing stronger with each passing moment. Bonner's words were more than just reassurance. They were a promise. And in that promise, Zarlia found something she hadn't realized she was missing: hope. The squad was huddled together in the war room, preparing for the next phase of their mission. They knew the stakes had never been higher. With the AI's forces preparing for a massive offensive, their window of opportunity to get Zarlia to safety was closing fast. The plan was simple: extract Zarlia from the planet and bring her back to Earth's last safe zone. But nothing was ever that simple when you were up against a relentless, superior force. "We'll move fast," Bonner said as he addressed his team. "We get Zarlia to the underground safe zone, then we'll arrange for her extraction. But we don't have much time before those reinforcements arrive." Lieutenant Hayes nodded. "We've got this. We're ready." The entire team was focused, their minds sharpened by the gravity of the mission ahead. But there was one thing that Bonner couldn't shake from his mind. The bond between his team and Zarli was growing, but so was the danger. The AI wasn't just going to let them walk away. They knew they had to fight their way out. The question was, could they? As Bonner turned to check the latest intel on his console, a sudden alarm blared through the ship, making everyone jump. The alert system flashed red. "Reinforcements incoming," Hayes said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Massive fleet. Too many to count." Bonner's heart sank. They didn't have the time. The AI's reinforcements had arrived early, and their overwhelming numbers meant they were running out of options. But there was no turning back now. The team had already committed to the mission, and nothing could stop them, not even an alien fleet. "Get to the hangar," Bonner barked. "We leave now. No more delays." The team rushed through the corridors, their weapons at the ready, adrenaline pumping as they prepared for the fight of their lives. Zarli, despite her alien strength and abilities, moved swiftly alongside them, her resolve as unshakable as theirs. As they reached the hangar, Bonner couldn't help but notice the difference in Zarli's demeanor. She was no longer the cold, distant warrior who had once stood against humanity. She was one of them, part of the team. She had learned what it meant to be human, to fight for something greater than oneself. But their enemies weren't going to make it easy. The doors of the hangar slammed open, revealing a swarm of AI drones pouring in, their weapons charging. The battle had begun. "Let's go," Bonner shouted as his team took their positions, weapons blazing. The fight was brutal, fast, and unforgiving. The AI drones seemed endless, but the humans fought back with everything they had. Each shot was precision, every move calculated. Despite the overwhelming odds, Bonner's squad fought as one, relying on each other's strengths to survive. As the team made their way to the extraction point, the sound of gunfire and explosions filled the air. Zarli, fighting alongside the humans, was no longer the outsider. She was a member of the team, defending the very people who had once been her enemies. The transformation in her was remarkable. But in the heat of battle, she was still the same fierce warrior. She fought like she had nothing to lose, and, in a way, she didn't. "We're almost there," Bonner yelled, dodging an explosion that rocked the ground beneath him. "Just a little further." But the AI wasn't backing down. As the team neared the extraction ship, a massive enemy ship appeared in the sky above, its weapons aimed directly at them. "We can't outrun this," Dant said, his voice grim. "We need to hold them off, or we're done." Bonner's mind raced. They couldn't let Zarlia fall back into enemy hands. They had promised to keep fighting. And now, they had to live up to that promise. Without hesitation, he turned to his team. "Take up positions. We're not leaving anyone behind." The battle raged on. But through it all, one thing was clear. No matter how tough things got, no matter how impossible the odds, Bonner and his squad would never break their promise. They were humans, and humans didn't leave anyone behind. The battlefield was chaos. The ground shook as explosions rocked the air, sending plumes of smoke and dust into the sky. The squad was pinned down, surrounded by the AI's forces. Each moment felt like an eternity. Bonner's team had fought tooth and nail, using their cunning and humanity's most advanced technology, but they were up against something far more powerful. The AI had upgraded its army with weapons and ships beyond anything they had seen. The odds were stacked higher than ever, but they weren't ready to give up yet. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he crouched behind a large piece of debris. The air smelled of burning metal and ozone. He could hear the hum of enemy drones getting closer, their weapons primed and ready. His hands tightened around his rifle, and he glanced over at Zarlia, who was silently calculating their next move. She had come a long way from being a cold enemy to becoming a trusted ally. Now she was as much a part of the team as anyone. "You ready?" Mark asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zarli nodded, her eyes fierce. "We fight for each other now." Bonner's voice crackled through the comms. "Everyone, regroup. The enemy leader is moving in. We need to hold them off long enough for the extraction to be ready." Mark clenched his jaw, determined. "Copy that, Captain. We'll hold the line." They moved quickly, coordinating their attacks to outmaneuver the enemy. The AI leader's forces were relentless, but Bonner's squad was smarter. They had the advantage of teamwork, and they were willing to sacrifice everything to protect one another. As Mark sprinted across the battlefield, his mind flashed back to everything that had brought them here. From the early days of resistance to the moments of doubt when they weren't sure they could win. But here they were, standing against impossible odds, with the fate of humanity and Zarli hanging in the balance. Suddenly, a loud, taunting voice echoed across the battlefield, sending chills down Mark's spine. "You think you can stop me?" The enemy leader's voice was cold and confident, almost mocking. "You are nothing but insects, and this world will be mine, just like the others." Mark's blood boiled. The AI leader was relentless in his arrogance, but Mark knew this fight wasn't just about strategy. It was about survival. It was about showing the universe what humans were truly capable of. "I won't let you have her," Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the noise of battle. The leader's ship hovered just above the battlefield, a massive and imposing figure against the backdrop of the smoky sky. From it, drones dropped down, swarming like locusts, blocking the humans' escape routes. But the humans weren't going down without a fight. The squad split up, their movements calculated and synchronized. Sarah and Dante were the first to charge, their weapons blazing as they took on wave after wave of enemy forces. Sarah's hands were steady, her aim true as she gunned down a line of drones with cold precision. Dante, the biggest of the squad, was a force of nature, tearing through enemies with brutal force. But the fight was taking its toll. Sarah had taken a hit, and Dante's energy was waning. The two exchanged a quick glance, silently acknowledging the danger they were in. "We've got this," Sarah said, her voice strained but determined. But as they continued to push forward, the AI leader sent in a new wave of reinforcements, each one equipped with weapons that were far too advanced for the humans to handle. Despite their best efforts, the squad's position began to weaken. Sarah was hit again, this time more seriously, and as she fell to the ground, Dante was there to shield her with his body. "Go," Sarah gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. "Finish the fight." Dante hesitated, but Sarah's grip on his arm was firm, her eyes filled with unwavering courage. With a final glance at Sarah, he turned and ran, knowing he had no choice but to leave her behind. The battle was far from over, and they couldn't afford to lose anyone else. Dante charged toward the enemy leader, his massive form charging through enemy lines like a juggernaut. The leader's drones fired at him relentlessly, but Dante kept pushing forward, refusing to be stopped. Just as he was about to reach the enemy leader, one of the drones struck him in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Mark's heart shattered as he saw Dante fall. His body crumpled beneath the weight of the attack. The AI had taken another one of his squad. "No," Mark shouted, his voice raw with pain. Zarlia, who had been fighting beside him, gripped his arm, her face tight with determination. "We can't stop now. We need to push forward." But Mark was frozen, grief clouding his thoughts. He had just lost another friend, another teammate, but there was no time to mourn. They had to keep fighting. The squad regrouped, rallying around their fallen comrades. With renewed fury, they charged into the fray. The AI leader watched from above, still taunting them, still believing they were no match for his superior forces. "You cannot win," the leader said, his voice booming through the speakers. "Your species will fall. I will take Zarli back, and nothing you do will stop me." Zarli's eyes burned with anger, and Mark saw a new fire in her gaze. The princess who had once been abandoned by her own people was no longer a helpless victim. She was a warrior, a force to be reckoned with. "I've learned from the best," Zarli said quietly to Mark. "And now, I'll fight with you." With a battle cry, Zarli leaped into the heart of the fight. Using everything she had learned from Mark and his squad, she took on the AI drones with an unmatched fury. Her strength and skill were astonishing. As she tore through the enemy forces, she was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. She was her own weapon. Mark joined her, his heart pounding as he fought with everything he had left. Each movement, each shot, was a tribute to those they had lost. Sarah, Dante, and all the others who had fallen. They were not forgotten. Their sacrifices fueled Mark's determination. Finally, the AI leader descended from his ship, stepping onto the battlefield in a display of power. He was towering, his armor shining darkly, his voice mocking as always. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "I am invincible." Mark gripped his weapon tightly. This was it, the final confrontation, the end of everything they had fought for. With a roar, Mark and Zarli rushed at the AI leader. The battle was fierce, each blow exchanged with deadly precision. But in the end, it was Zarli's final strike that broke through the enemy's defenses. With a swift, brutal motion, she drove her blade into the AI leader's chest, ending the threat once and for all. The AI leader's body crumpled, and the remaining drones began to retreat, their will broken. The battle was over. They had won. But the victory was bittersweet. As Mark and Zarli stood amidst the wreckage of their enemies, the memory of those they had lost weighed heavily on them. Sarah, Dante, and the others had given their lives to protect humanity and this new alliance. Their sacrifices were not in vain. "We did it," Mark said quietly, his voice filled with exhaustion and sorrow. Zarli looked at him, her expression solemn. "Yes, we did. And now, we rebuild." As the dust began to settle, and the last of the enemy forces retreated, Bonner's squad stood tall, knowing that their battle had shaped the future. The humans had proven that no matter the odds, no matter the technology of their enemies, they would never give up. They had fought with everything they had, and in the end, they had won. And that was something the universe would never forget. The air was still, the battlefield eerily quiet after the deafening roar of explosions and the constant hum of weapons. The dust was slowly settling over the wreckage of what had been the AI's forces. The once mighty drones now lay in pieces, scattered across the landscape, a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. Mark stood with his weapon in hand, staring at the horizon. His squad had fought tooth and nail. And now, at last, it was over. Zarli was safe. The AI had been defeated, and the enemy forces had retreated, leaving the humans victorious. But the cost of that victory was heavy. The faces of his fallen comrades, Sarah, Dante, and the others, flashed in Mark's mind. Their sacrifice was a painful reminder that the battle had come at a steep price, yet they had won. Humanity had won. And that was something no one had ever expected. The sky above was slowly clearing, the once dark clouds parting to reveal a peaceful blue. The sun, a golden orb in the sky, seemed to shine brighter, as if it too acknowledged the triumph of those who had fought so hard. Mark looked over at Zarlia, who was standing beside him, her expression calm but reflective. The princess of a fallen empire had seen humanity's true strength firsthand. No longer was she the frightened alien who had been abandoned by her people. She was now a symbol of hope, of change, for both humans and her own species. Zarli had come to Earth as an enemy, believing the stories of the humans as bloodthirsty, savage monsters. But she had learned otherwise. In the heat of battle, she had seen firsthand what humanity was capable of: sacrifice, loyalty, and strength. And now, with the battle over, she was not just a survivor. She was a leader. She had seen how humans could rise above their primal instincts and fight for something greater than themselves. As she stood beside Mark, she turned to him, her voice soft but firm. "You didn't just fight for me. You fought for your world, for your people. You fought for honor." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "It wasn't easy. We lost good people, but we didn't back down." Zarli placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes meeting his. "That's what makes you strong. That's what makes you different from those who tried to conquer you. You fight for what you believe in, and you don't give up." Mark could feel the weight of her words, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance in this galaxy. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. It was more than just a victory on the battlefield. It was a victory for humanity's place in the stars. As they spoke, a voice crackled through their comms. It was a voice that carried authority, power, and the weight of an entire galaxy. "This is the Galactic Council," the voice said. "We are contacting Earth for the first time since the battle." Mark's heart skipped a beat. The Galactic Council, the governing body of the galaxy, had been watching the events unfold. They had witnessed the humans' unexpected victory over the AI forces, and now they were reaching out. Mark could almost hear the disbelief in their voices as they realized that the carnivorous humans, the savage species they had heard so much about, had not only defeated the most advanced technological forces in the galaxy, but had also rescued Zarli, the princess of their once mighty empire. There was a moment of silence before the voice on the comms spoke again. We had no idea." The reports, they painted a picture of a species driven by aggression, bloodthirsty and uncontrollable. But what we've seen today is something entirely different. You did what we thought was impossible. You saved Zarlia, and in doing so, you've proven that you are more than just a threat. You are a force to be reckoned with." Zarlia stepped forward, her gaze steady as she addressed the Galactic Council. "Humans have taught me the true meaning of strength. It is not found in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to protect. To fight for something greater than yourself. They have shown me that loyalty and sacrifice are what make a species truly powerful." Her words echoed in Mark's mind, reminding him of the sacrifices made, the lives lost. He had never been one for speeches, but Zarli's words made him realize just how far they had come. Humanity, once seen as nothing more than a savage species, was now standing on the precipice of something greater. Zarli's voice continued, strong and clear. I have witnessed your strength firsthand. And now I will carry that strength with me, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what humanity is capable of. We are no longer enemies. We are allies." The Galactic Council remained silent for a moment, processing her words. Then, a new voice emerged from the comms, one full of respect and awe. We are honored by your words, Princess Zarlia, and we are humbled by your actions. You have changed our understanding of humanity. Perhaps it is time we look at this species in a new light." Mark could hear the change in the tone of the Galactic Council. They were no longer seeing humanity as a primitive species, but as equals. They were starting to realize that humans, despite their flaws, had something the rest of the galaxy could learn from. They had something powerful, a heart, a soul, and a determination that could not be crushed. As the transmission ended, Mark turned to face his squad. They were all standing together, looking at the horizon where the last remnants of the enemy forces were fading away. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. The Galactic Council had acknowledged their strength, but that was just the first step. Zarli walked over to Mark and the others, her gaze steady and calm. "This is just the beginning," she said. "There is much to be done. But now we have a chance to build something together. Humans and Zarlia, working side by side." Mark nodded, feeling a sense of pride swelling in his chest. The battles had been brutal, and the cost had been high, but they had made it through. The road ahead would be difficult, but now they had an ally in Zarlia, someone who understood them and would fight for them. As the squad gathered around, Mark looked at each of them. They had made it through, and though they had lost comrades along the way, they had never lost sight of who they were and what they fought for. They fought for each other. They fought for humanity. They fought for hope. And now, they had a chance to build something new. Something stronger. Something that would last. Zarli turned to Mark and the others, her voice soft but resolute. "You have proven that humans are not just survivors. You are heroes. And we, Zarlia and her people, will stand with you, as allies, as friends." The words hung in the air, powerful and final. The humans, once seen as savage and uncivilized, had now proven themselves to the galaxy. They were no longer just underdogs. They were heroes, and this new beginning would change the course of history. As Zarlia boarded her ship to return to her people, she looked back at the humans one last time. "This is only the beginning," she said, her voice filled with hope. "The galaxy will know that humanity is not to be underestimated." Mark watched her go, a new sense of purpose filling his heart. The war was over, but their real work was just beginning. And with allies like Zarlia, there was no limit to what they could accomplish. The story of humanity's rise had just begun, and it was a story that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.